It says in Genesis that in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. The word heaven is a combination of two words, Maim and Sham. There is water.
Israel pumped an entire sea onto a mountain, against gravity, to stop the country from dying. Here's what you need to understand. The Sea of Galilee sits 213 meters below sea level, 700 feet down, lowest freshwater lake on Earth. For 60 years, they pulled water out of this lake, pushed it uphill over a mountain range, and sent it south through steel pipes to turn a desert into farmland. But the lake started dying. Every year the water dropped, inches at first, then feet. And there's a line painted on those gauge poles. They call it the black line. Cross it, and the salt concentration spikes. The water becomes undrinkable. The pumps start sucking air instead of water. The entire system collapses, permanently. So engineers did something no country had ever attempted. They reversed a 60-year-old river, made it flow backwards, took desalinated seawater from the Mediterranean coast, pumped it inland, forced it uphill through the same mountains it once flowed down from, just to refill a hole in the ground. The pumps are running right now, hundreds of millions of gallons climbing elevation every single day. But what happened after those pumps started? The ecological gamble they took, the risk of mixing manufactured water with a 10,000-year-old ecosystem. That's the real story, and it could have gone catastrophically wrong. Look at the map. Geography trapped them from the start. The Sea of Galilee sits in a basin surrounded by mountains. It's fed by snowmelt from Mount Hermon in the north. The Jordan River trickles down and empties into it. That's the entire natural supply. Everything flows down into the lake because physics doesn't give you a choice. In the 1950s, Israel had a brutal problem. The population was exploding, immigrants flooding in. The fertile soil was in the south, the Negev desert, but the water was locked in the north. You can't move 1 million people to a lake. So they decided to move the lake to the people. They called it the national water carrier, and it consumed the country. 5% of the entire GDP went into pipes and pumps. 1 in 14 working adults was on the project. They were betting the future of the nation on the idea that you could defy elevation itself. The engineering was insane. They drilled an intake pipe into the Sea of Galilee. Then they built the Sapir pumping station. 6 massive pumps working together to lift water 200 vertical meters in a single push. That's like filling a 60-story building, every hour, for decades. Once the water cleared the mountains, gravity took over. It flowed south through open canals, then into steel pipelines over 1 meter wide. The system stretched 130 kilometers, all the way to the Negev, and it worked. The desert turned green almost overnight. New towns appeared around actual running water, not ancient oases, but tap water from a lake 130 kilometers away. Israel started exporting oranges, avocados, tomatoes to Europe. The Sea of Galilee became the literal beating heart, pumping life into the entire country. But here's the thing they couldn't engineer around. The system didn't create water. It only moved it. Every gallon going south was 1 less gallon in the lake. And the lake wasn't infinite. Early 2000s, the lake drops 2 meters in a drought. Red lights everywhere. Then the rains come back. It refills. Everyone exhales. False relief. 2008 to 2011. Another drought, worse than before. The lake drops even faster this time. The shoreline pulls back. Marinas end up on dry land. Brief recovery. Not enough. 2016 to 2018. 80 centimeters gone in a single year. Climate patterns shifting. Less snow on Mount Hermon. Less flow from the Jordan. Meanwhile, upstream, Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, they're taking more water from the sources before it even reaches Israel. The demand kept climbing. More people, more farms, desert agriculture sucking water through drip lines. The math became brutal. Water going out exceeded water coming in every single year, and the engineers watched the black line get closer. First it was meters away, safe zone, then 1 meter, then centimeters. They started doing the math on how many bad rain seasons until they'd cross it. The answer was terrifying. 1, maybe 2. The catch-22 tightened like a noose. To save the lake, stop pumping. Let it refill naturally. But stop pumping and you cut off the Negev. The farms that feed the country collapse. Economic devastation. Social collapse. So they kept draining the lake. Slower. but still draining, buying time while the water level kept falling. They needed a source that didn't depend on rain, didn't depend on snow, didn't depend on neighboring countries cooperating. They needed water that would flow no matter what. And there was only one place to get it: reverse osmosis. The concept is simple, but the execution is brutal. You take seawater and force it through membranes at crushing pressure, 70 bars, 1,000 pounds per square inch. Water molecules are small enough to squeeze through. Salt, minerals, everything else gets blocked. What comes out the other side is pure H2O. What's left behind is concentrated brine that gets pumped back into the sea. They didn't build one plant. They built 5 colossal facilities in a single decade. An industrial sprint. Sorek alone pumps out 150 million cubic meters a year. That's 20% of all domestic water in the country. Ashkelon, Hadera, Palmachim, Ashdod. Each one a factory manufacturing water. And almost overnight, the water in Israeli homes changed. Turn on a tap in Tel Aviv now, and what comes out started as Mediterranean seawater that morning. The ancient link between rainfall and survival? Cut. If it doesn't rain for 5 years, cities don't care anymore. But look at what didn't change. The lake kept shrinking, because desalination only fed the cities. The farms in the Negev, still pulling from the old system, still draining the Sea of Galilee. Desalination solved half the problem. The lake was still dying. Somewhere in a planning meeting, somebody asked the question that changed everything. What if we reverse it? Think about what they had. Desalination plants on the coast, making surplus water. The national water carrier already built, 130 kilometers of pipes and pumps, connecting the coast to the interior. What if they could make it run backwards? The engineering challenge was staggering. You're retrofitting a system built in the 1960s that was designed for gravity, designed for water to flow downhill. Now you need to push it uphill, rebuild pumping stations, lay new parallel pipes over 1 meter wide, thread them through mountains, under highways, through land that's been developed for 60 years. And here's the scale. The Mediterranean is at sea level. The mountains inland peak around 600 feet elevation. Then the terrain drops into the Jordan Rift Valley, where the Sea of Galilee sits 700 feet below sea level. So the water has to climb 600 feet just to clear the high point. Then it can flow down into the basin. They're moving hundreds of millions of gallons every day, forcing it uphill, fighting gravity with electricity. The energy cost alone is massive. But the alternative, losing the strategic reserve, the agricultural buffer, the ecological anchor of the entire region, that cost was higher. But nobody knew what would happen ecologically. The Sea of Galilee is 10,000 years old. It has a specific mineral balance, specific algae populations, fish species that have adapted to exactly this water chemistry for millennia. And now you're about to pump in millions of gallons of desalinated water, clinically pure, different mineral content, different temperature. No country had ever tried to replenish a natural freshwater lake with manufactured seawater at this scale. The scientists said, "We'll monitor everything. Algae blooms, fish populations, salinity gradients, oxygen levels. We acknowledge the unknowns, but the alternative was guaranteed ecological collapse when the lake hit the black line. So the unknowns were the better bet. It worked. The lake started refilling, slowly at first, then faster as the system ramped up. The gauge poles that had been climbing out of the water for 20 years started going back under. And they didn't stop there. They built a third pillar: wastewater recycling. 90% of sewage water in Israel gets treated and reused, highest rate on the planet. You see purple pipes running parallel to regular water lines. That's the recycled water. It goes to agriculture. The farms stopped pulling fresh water entirely. They run on reclaimed water now. The system became circular. Desalination plants on the coast create water. It flows to homes and cities. People use it. It gets treated. Recycled water goes to farms. And any surplus, water beyond what the country needs, gets pumped back. Back to the Sea of Galilee. Back to underground aquifers that had been depleted for decades. For decades, the mindset was extraction. Take water from nature. Use it. Lose some to evaporation and waste. Always running a deficit. Always one drought from disaster. Now the mindset is deposition. They're putting water back. More than they take. The country that was dying of thirst now has a water surplus. The black line? No longer a threat. The lake has refilled past the red line. The ecosystem adapted. The fish populations are stable. The engineered water and the natural water mixed without catastrophe. Israel went from victim of geography to benefactor. From a country that begged the sky for rain to one that manufactures water on demand. They didn't just solve a water crisis. They reversed the physics of survival itself.